to MindMakers. I'm John Kim, co-founder and CEO of Sendbird. On this show, I talk to the people who are building the next generation of artificial intelligence, from founders to executives to technologists who are shaping the future of AI and its real-world impact. Today, I'm joined by Bhavin Shah, co-founder and CEO of Moveworks. Moveworks is the enterprise agentic AI platform to automate support and empower employees at scale. So you had a really remarkable journey as a repeat founder. You started your career as a toy company, Leapfrog, is that right? To launching multiple startups, including Refresh, later acquired by LinkedIn, and then now leading Moveworks through its explosive growth and expansion. So welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks, John, for having me. And it feels great. Summer's over. Enterprise buyers are spending money and investing, and IPOs are ripping. So I feel great to be where we are right now, and obviously to be here with you.
Yeah. And maybe just to start us off, would you tell the audience a little bit about what Moveworks does and maybe your story of how you've started the company?
Sure. So, in a nutshell, Moveworks is an enterprise agentic platform, but it manifests as an assistant that employees use through Slack, through Teams, through the web, to be able to find information. So you talk about enterprise search and RAG and those kind of capabilities, to your sort of actions that are needed. As employees navigate across the enterprise, there's lots of different systems that they use. And what we found is that, a tool that allows you to take actions, fill out forms, complete tasks, find information, gather it, assemble it, make sense of it, is really, really critical. And then third is really kind of enable employees to be more productive, like you would expect with a ChatGPT or some sort of a tool. We're finding that we become this central front door for employees, again, at large enterprises that can then better navigate the work they need done. And so that's what we built. That's kind of been our vision for a long time. And it's been very exciting over the last few years, especially.
Yeah. Maybe let's go back a little bit in history. Like when you first started Moveworks, I think it started as a kind of a singular, narrower focus of transforming the IT help desk.
Yeah.
And I think since then it has expanded to a far more number of use cases. Maybe can you walk us through how the initial vision has evolved into what Moveworks is now today?
Yeah. So this is sort of, I think I'll go back to when I put the company together. And, as a founder, you're always thinking about like, how do you think about the opportunities that are presenting themselves? For us, we saw a few secular shifts. So, my folks were starting to text me on WhatsApp. I'm like, okay, something's changed here. You started to see a global phenomenon of people preferring short-formed communication, WeChat, iMessage, et cetera. At the same time, we were also in this era of instant, where DoorDash and Uber and these things were becoming quite popular and expected. But yet in the enterprise, things were still relatively slow. And, I sort of academically, with my co-founders, started to interview CIOs. And that's when we started to realize there wasn't a lot of AI that was being applied to make life better inside the workplace. And that there was a lot of commonality, homogeneity that we saw with enterprise IT help desks, where CIOs were solving the same problem over and over again. And we said, well, this is a space, this is a market, people spend money on this software, but why isn't it, autonomous? Why isn't it resolving these issues? And so that's really what got us excited to say, hey, if we apply some basic machine learning techniques, and I think about this, 2016, pre-transformer, pre all that, I'll get to that in a minute. But we were really excited that if we could understand these issues, we could actually make a reasonable dent at resolving them and bringing this vision of like instantaneous support, instantaneous answers to employees.
Maybe a follow-up question to that is, I kind of like look at a lot of B2 companies and put them into three different buckets. One is solving messy problems. Second is kind of solving very difficult problems like black box, some kind of magic. Third would be like increasing productivity. I think Moveworks does a little bit of everything, but what was most hard about building Moveworks? And what is the most messiest thing that you had to deal with?
Yeah, I think we're definitely more squarely in the messy category, because I think that, a lot of people look for very elegant solutions when they're building companies. They would like some simple Google search algorithm to go and, essentially print money for decades. But what we found is that the job to be done, the need, was to be more interactive with all these systems and to integrate with them. And integrations are not trivial. I think what people try and think is, oh, I can go to this website and they have 1,000 integrations, but what there really are is simple API calls into simple use cases. But when an enterprise needs something automated, and we'll get into a lot more of, I'm sure, what we think about in terms of business transformation, the opportunity requires you to really go deep and to handle this sort of messiness. Now, magic is something that I think is important because these problems are things that have to delight users. And so to be able to do something that's unexpected has been obviously characterized by the era we're in right now. Every few months, there's something new that sort of blows our mind. But for us, we also needed to deliver things that worked out of the box. And so that's sort of what, kind of how we think about the job to be done. Obviously, we went on a journey where we sort of started with that kind of premise of one area, and then we expanded that, benefiting from some of these investments that we had made.
Yeah. And kind of like you said, the companies need to earn the right to scale by being the best at doing one thing first, right? So what was like the turning point when you knew Moveworks had really earned the right to scale?
Yeah.
What was the first thing you solved? Really well?
Let me first sort of take a step back and sort of say, if you think about the job that we were trying to do, because I think this is important in terms of then answering your question. We were starting off in this era where there was just some basic statistical machine learning models. Then, of course, the Transformer paper came out. And the first model that was released using that architecture from Google was called the BERT model. And that really transformed our perspective, which is no longer did we have to do a lot of this kind of bespoke work and training. We could sort of get the right data sets together and then deliver our experience using these models by doing discriminative tasks. Is it this? Is it that? Is it an IT ticket? Is it this kind of other issue? How do we extract entities? How do we identify intents? All of that. And that still required us to systematically go through each department. So we were building IT, we had that in place. We then were expanding and training against HR use cases. We were gathering finance tickets and things of that nature. And that really accelerated our business to go a little bit beyond the IT domain. But as time went on, of course, then, in November of 22, I remember where I was. I was on a plane to Bangalore when ChatGPT dropped. And people are texting me and messaging me, have you seen this? And all of a sudden, we're in this new Gen AI era where we realize these models can actually very quickly, because they're so large, be able to understand any domain. And so we went from sort of, a product that handled a few areas to overnight, we could now handle every question across every department. And that was really critical for unlocking our position, which eventually becomes this sort of platform that you described at the beginning. But that was sort of where we then said, okay, if this exists, we no longer have to worry about all this data that we would normally have to use to train. These things are zero-shot, few-shot learning type of systems. But we still have to do post-training. And there was still specialization that we needed to bring. So it brings me back full circle to this idea that, hey, so what's the job to be done? The job to be done was, now that you have this incredible brain power, you need the arms and legs to go and grab data, do the query. SAP requires maybe 3 or 4 queries to get to one sensible piece of information that then has to be used again in another query to then gather data. So I think that, it took a lot of building. It wasn't something that you could build in a few weeks, in a few months. I think sometimes people have that impression, is that you can, MVP your way into some of these markets, which you can. But for enterprise, you have to kind of grind your way into it. So when you think about earn the right to sort of expand, I think one, you have to be able to give the right sort of business outcome at each juncture and each point. I'm sure get into that. But I think that what we started to figure out is we were doing something right because of 2 things. We started to see an increase in demand in the product. Lead volumes were going up substantially. And I think the number that stuck in my head was 1 in 4 closed deals that we were closing at that time were referrals. So if you're getting a lot of referrals, if you're getting a lot of inbound organic leads, then clearly you've hit some sort of product fit. You've earned the right now to take the conversation further. If what you've built isn't driving demand and it's all something you have to go out and seek and do, well, then maybe it's still that the market hasn't gotten there, or that your product isn't hitting the mark so well that it's become a bit of a word of mouth phenomenon. And that's what's, even with enterprise software, even though people say it's sold, not bought, which I totally agree with, there has to be some good vibes out there about what you're doing for you then to have the agency and the right to kind of think more broadly. I think people think founding a company is about being a visionary. On some level it is, but most of it's execution. And you can't have the right to think big unless you can execute in a local fashion.
Yeah. There's like so many things that we can unpack here. You kind of touched a little bit around the like hitting product market fit. How did you know, like, what are some of the factors? You mentioned a little bit around like number of, a quarter of the deals there close won were coming from referrals, kind of good vibes, business outcomes. Like, how did you know you found product market fit? And how were you able to tell the signals from the noise? Especially there's pre-LLM and the post-LLM. I'm sure your business went through some transformation.
Yeah.
Was there also a product market fit moment before arrival LLM, or was that LLM a true big unlock for you?
No, I think what it was is actually everything's changed for us. So if you think about the space, we were very early. We were in a sense defining the category. We found ourselves basically evangelists, telling people, hey, no, actually chat could be quite effective. It's not the sort of stilted experience that you see in your customer support use cases in those days. It's actually quite dynamic, and we can actually talk to Okta, and we can talk to ServiceNow, and we can talk to Microsoft, and we can do all these things. And people were delighted. And so in fact, on some level, you would argue those were simpler times because we had a great product and a market that ostensibly was smaller than it is today. Because you sort of had to get to the market and explain and show. And once we showed it, people were like, wow, this is amazing. And with the growth of Slack and Teams at the time, all throughout, starting in 2017, people were like looking for solutions like this. I think what then happened was, as the market exploded with awareness around what AI could be, that's when there was more noise, there was more players, there was more, of course, then opportunity, right? But when you think about your core question of like, how do you know where you are and, do you have that fit? I think for us, one thing I look for is a clear metric of qualified pipeline to close one. And, if you look at that, if you're above 40%, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a high number. But we've achieved that. We see that happening. The other part is sales rep productivity based on capacity. I think anything above 110% means a couple things. You could sort of pick at that and say, hey, maybe you don't have enough reps. You should put more out there because you're above capacity. But I think you're constantly doing that. You're constantly evaluating, can I expand? Can I expand? And if your reps are doing well, that means that you've got the right size, at least, to start to then have the ability to expand. But I think sometimes what happens is, people don't look too closely at those metrics. They end up then saying, hey, look, we had a good quarter, but you can still have a good quarter. Maybe you have twice as many reps. Numbers are lower, the productivity is lower. And then you decide with the board to expand the number of reps. Meanwhile, it's actually not meeting them, or the market's not there for you to fully then, get the value and extract it. So I think there is some challenges sometimes with how you scope your business and your scale based on the market interest. And that sort of, all ties together.
Oh, it's like fantastic metric. Usually win rates, even the heydays of Zoom, I heard their win rates were like 30%-ish. Again, industries like gold benchmarks like 25%.
Yeah,
if you hit somewhere between 20 to 30%, you're doing really well.
You're
doing 40%. Some may argue, it's like, are you qualifying the leads a little bit too harshly?
Sure.
But then if you're still growing fast, then maybe you're just really hitting the product market fit really, really well. And even the early days of December too, I remember us presenting a number to the board, which, back then board was liking because it was fairly aggressive, but we're always like beating the number with fewer reps. So everyone was like beating their quota, to your point, around 110%, 120, 130%. They're like, are you sandbagging? Should we hire more? But I'm like, no, we're not sandbagging. We're like kind of crossing our fingers, wishing luck. And every quarter there was like some amazing logos and some volume of deals that would come in and close at a pretty high win rates. And that's when we knew like we're on the right path. But also product market fit is such a moving target. There's change the competition, change the market landscape, new technologies like LLMs that pop up that just completely change the game. And it seems like the early days of Slack and Microsoft Teams has kind of laid out the rails for you guys to run faster. And then LLMs. Are there any other interesting technology shift that you're kind of paying attention to that we should be thinking about related to your business or even just broader in the AI space?
Yeah. Well, I think that, product market fit, as you said, is a lot more dynamic. It sounds like a destination. Oh, I reached product market fit. Not at all.
Yeah.
You reached it for a moment, and then everything continues to evolve. Competitors evolve. Your customer's mindset evolves. I mean, think about just last 2 years, things we were worried about a year ago. Yeah. It's like, whatever. And so we do find that you can't really sit there and assume anything in this technology world that we're in. I think you have to keep evolving it. To that point in your question of, how do we think about, some of the emerging opportunities and such, I think, what I try and resist is when people ask me, what's the world going to look like in 5 years? I don't know. And I think anyone who tries to do that, unless you're a futurist with a lot of credibility, it's really hard. So what you have to do is you have to build your product in a future-proof way. What does that mean? Look at where the investments are going. Look at who's raising the most money. Look at the problems that they're trying to solve and figure out how you could take advantage of that. You said, Slack was growing, Teams was growing, right? We were leveraging that growth early days of Moveworks to get us into these enterprises, to be leveraged, to be known, to be used by all employees. And that was wonderful. So the same thing goes today, is that if you're creating a product like ours, we built it with an architecture that we can swap in the latest foundation model based on whatever it brings. And of course, this year there's a lot of video, there's a lot of multimodal stuff now getting perfected. Things are starting to stabilize. We obviously went through the deep research, sort of phase of this, and people are starting to see the power of that. And so all of those capabilities we keep incorporating because those brains will keep evolving. Meanwhile, we're very responsible for all of the interconnects, the quality of service, the user experience that has to come together for these things to actually provide the business outcome that's required. So I think that you have to think about, what are you trying to uniquely position yourself as being? And, I've seen some startups, think that they should go build foundation models themselves. It's worth a conversation.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yes.
You mentioned business outcome a few times. And in business, they say, well, you can either save costs, save money, make money, or de-risk or risk mitigation for enterprises. Like, where does Moveworks create the most amount of business outcome for your clients? I'm sure it's a little bit everything, but sure. Where do you guys focus on?
So I like to break up the problem into two buckets. I think you have sort of things that are related to employee productivity. And that is really what most would characterize, I would characterize as weak ROI. Why is that? Yeah. Now, we talk about productivity, don't get me wrong, we all like to feel good at the end of the day when we get a lot done, or we do feel good. But the issue is that even if we get more done, what percentage of that actually leads to business growth? What percentage of that just alleviates our own tax that we have of, doing the work that we do? And so companies can't fully realize the impact of, weak ROI or shallow ROI. But where businesses are coming to us looking at getting help with is this real, what they call strong ROI, real business transformation. So if you think about a business process, let's take, hiring, right? You have to open up a rec. There has to be something in the budget. It has to be aligned with things. You have to get a recruiter assigned to it. You have to have, a flow of source candidates. You have to, then do the interviews. They all have to be assembled in terms of the information packets and so forth, back to the hiring. There's a lot of steps to it. And there's great software to manage all that. But it was always done in a more traditional system of record with different tools. And going back to our original thesis is there's a lot of chair swiveling with employees having to go to this system and that system and this other. Yeah. What they're looking to us to do is say, hey, if we can agentify this, can you make this a completely magical, easy experience that is really more of a conversation? Can you have your system proactively assemble information through ambient agents and bring that to the hiring manager and so on? So I think for us, what that means is, and why that's strong ROI, is because with the weak ROI, when the employee leaves, that benefit leaves with the employee. Mm-hmm. Meaning that someone else has to adopt those same best practices to benefit from it. Whereas here, if I transform how one of our large pharma companies or one of our large industrial manufacturers use Moveworks, like a Honeywell or a Siemens or Palo Alto Networks uses Moveworks, we're forever changing how that gets done in that company. Mm-hmm. So forever, when someone needs to find out, hey, what's the status of this marketing campaign? Or like, hey, that billboard out there on the 101, like, how well is it doing? That always takes someone's time. But if I can now make that one chat away, we're going to forever reduce the noise and the volume and the disturbance and the interrupts that go on in that organization forever.
Yeah. How do you measure ROI on billboard on 101?
Well, that's for the marketing team to decide. The question there is, when the exec says, how well is that doing? There is some tool that exists in the range of tools that marketing teams tend to use that then give them that, insight.
Yeah. So for the audience, it's fairly recent news that ServiceNow seems like they're interested in acquiring Moveworks. Tell us for the audience, how did it happen?
Well, there's always a saying that I think about, which I think is very true. Great companies are not sold, they're bought. And I think as a founder, you have to be very committed to your journey. And if at the right time, at the right place, something comes together, then you must consider it as a fiduciary of the board. And for us, we've been building our company for a long time as an independent company. And it was very important for us to continue that. And yes, to your point, back in March, ServiceNow announced their intent to purchase Moveworks. We're still going through, regulatory procedures and processes, so it hasn't closed. But, I'll say this, which is, we're very excited about this. And people ask, why are you excited? Why are you taking this route? What I've seen and what I've learned over the last 2 years, especially, is that distribution really, really matters right now. It's a big deal when it comes to what is going to determine the winners and the losers. And you, of course, see what OpenAI is doing. They have the consumer brand that has defined this era, and that is giving them the access and the distribution to get in front of everyone in the world. Very similarly, we built a platform that we have proven, shown with, over 350 large enterprises around the world, paying us handsomely for the service that we do and the important work that we do. But that's 350. It's nothing, And if you think about even the best growth rates as a startup, maybe you're proud of having 150% growth rate at our scale of, 100 million plus. That still won't cut it if you think about the appetite that's out there in terms of demand. The market is evolving so quickly that our buyers and enterprises around the world are trying to pick their platforms. They're trying to decide what agentic platform will be good for my employees to use, for my developers to build on. How can we standardize on 1 or 3 of these platforms? And I've been watching this, and I said, hey, look, no matter how many reps we put out, no matter how much overproductivity we can achieve, how do we actually see that come to fruition? And, the folks at ServiceNow have built probably one of the most underrated businesses, I think, in tech. The second largest SaaS company, in terms of market cap. Yet you don't hear about them.
Yeah.
And they've got an incredible business, incredible distribution. And so really what our hope is and why we decided to come together with them was to be able to get Moveworks in front of, their 8,400, sort of large enterprises who are, we have an overlap today. So we see what the benefits are, but it's a race to who can get in front of more buyers faster so that you can get your story and your platform leveraged and adopted. So that was sort of the kind of the business case around why this made a lot of sense. I think that once we wrap this up and can close this deal, then we'll be able to talk more about what the future looks like. But until then, it's been pretty much just kind of working independently right now as a standalone company until the deal closes.
That's super exciting. Going from 350 accounts to call it 8,400. That's a massive, massive market opportunity. And I'm so happy for you and your team to be able to just tap into that growth potential. That's very exciting. On a personal note, I mean, I'm sure you work with your team, executive team, to work out all the details, sign agreements or term sheet, LOI, stuff like that. When you knew this deal at least was being formalized, what was the very first thing you did after? Like, did you call your wife or what did you do?
Well, I think it's a set of conversations. So there isn't like a, you scratch off the lottery ticket or something and then everything happens all at once.
Powerball.
For Powerball, right? Exactly. And it doesn't even feel like that to me at this point. It's really about what is the opportunity to take something that we have spent so much time building and put it in the right position to really be a long-term winner. But to your question, I mean, I think, you tend to go into these things with a lot of skepticism. At least I did. I'm pretty stubborn, I think, in general about, at least I've heard that from some of our board members in terms of, their ideas and my ideas. But at the same time, I think you have to keep a flexible, open mind as a CEO. And so for me, I've built this company not singularly, but with a great team, the entire company, but really obviously started with 4 of us co-founders, so 3 other co-founders. And so at every step of this process, the first call I'd make is, you go on your phone, you keep adding people, and then you do a group call, and you would talk about, what is transpiring, what are the options, what's being thrown out there, what's being considered. Of course, at the right time, you're also then involving the board to say, hey, is this something we want to keep digging into? But, I mean, the folks at ServiceNow are so classy. I mean, they were, very genuine. And I think we all have seen the world very similarly, in terms of eye to eye. So they were actually quite fun conversations. They were ones of kind of meeting of the mind in terms of what we both, see in the world, what we both think we can do together in the world. So I know not all M&A conversations go this way. I think sometimes it could be very threatening. It could be very, sort of stressful. But that wasn't the case for us. And I have to hand it to Bill McDermott and Amit Zaveri. They're just incredible human beings in terms of how they've approached this with sensitivity and care and recognizing where we were. And the opportunity that lay ahead. So just a lot of positive vibes and experience that I reflect on.
Yeah, it must be a great feeling to have that conversation with the co-founders after you guys been through a long journey together. Yeah. Is everyone still at the company?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. It's a nice outcome. I think life, you never know where life's going to take you, and you never know who you will work with or won't work with. And as you pointed out, I've started a few companies and learned a lot about myself over the years. And I think that I've been fortunate to find like-minded people who themselves were in the right place, right time for us all to go after this together for such a long period of time. Yeah. And then now we want to continue that, right? It's again, some people, and I cringe when people say, oh, this is an exit. No, please don't call it that, right? It's about us transforming the business and really hitting the curve of that J curve, yeah, and doing something, and doing something special. So being able to do that together makes it ever more sweeter and worthwhile. Because life is a collection of experiences. It's about people It's about winning together. It's much more fun to win together than it is to win alone. And 100%. We've been lucky and fortunate.
Yeah, because I always visualize and actually talk to our folks who joined SendBird. We are all writing the book where we are the characters, main character. We are the author and the character, right?
Yeah.
And if our company becomes, a paragraph, that's a pretty nice win. If it gets mentioned in one of the employees' book of life, but if it becomes like an interesting chapter, like that's a privilege. If it becomes multiple chapter for some of the long tenured employees or co-founders, that's a huge chunk of life. Imagine the best Hollywood movie, and where there's a whole story, there's a grind, there's a challenge, heroes, top risks, but ultimately you come out with some kind of a meaningful milestone, and that journey continues. That's a really, really amazing story. And your story resonates because we too have 4 co-founders,
Okay.
and all of us are still together after decade plus. We're like lifelong brothers at this point, and we've been through a lot, right? There's people don't often talk about this, but there's a lot of emotional ups and downs, family issues, all those things, and being able to persevere and come out and still be enjoying this journey together, right? That's a pretty rare after going through a lot, especially 4 co-founders, not that common in the Valley. So
we should start a club or some sort of have a badge for that distinction.
Fantastic Four. But
it is true. I think it's a neat experience that if you can find yourself there, it's a very precious thing.
Yeah.
And I think on your point around chapters and these things, of course, I think this goes to say for all founders, right? As you're going through these journeys, you're like, oh, that's another chapter. That's another chapter in this, sort of virtual book that you maintain in your head. And I think that I've always said, look, it takes guts to start a company, grit to scale it, and genius for it to outlive you. And very few people build, let's be honest, right? Build companies that outlive them. But I think that, we all strive for longevity, to your point. How big will your organization be in the look back of technology, and the look back of your life, and the look back of everyone else that's been working so hard to build this company with you over time.
All right, going back to AI. One of the recent conversation in AI space was this study done by MIT, where they found 95% of Gen AI projects just fail to generate any ROI, especially in enterprises. And you speak to a lot of CIOs in large organizations, hundreds of them. What are you hearing in this market? And more importantly, what are your thoughts on this study that 95% of Gen AI projects fail?
So when this study came out, it was all over our company because everyone's like, they're talking about us. They're talking about us in terms of that 5%. We have crossed so many paths with so many different organizations about their struggles with AI, their struggles to get things off the ground. And there's obviously, I think what happened when, sort of this whole phenomenon blew up when ChatGPT came out was it made the sort of average individual, average developer, average company to believe that, hey, this is going to be very accessible and you can sort of go and build anything. It's just looks so easy. And so there's a very strong bias towards building. And of course, you saw all these developer tools and platforms, and that's a whole other thing in terms of AI for developers. I think that's a big phenomenon. But you think about, people buying their own vector databases. I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to do that myself. And then things are starting to become more intrinsic in the hyperscaler offerings. They're starting to, make things more simple. But there's still this idea that, hey, I can go build this. And so what we've run across a lot is customers who are like, hey, we tried to build this. It worked for this demo. It worked for these 1 or 2 use cases. But as soon as we try and go org wide, or we try and make, this do 10 new things or 100 new things, it's much more complicated to deliver on. And so you don't get the kind of outcome that you're looking for. And so the struggle has been that the complexity just rises dramatically, and they're not able to get the use cases sort of fully working.
Yeah.
But on that study, I think going back to my other points, I think a lot of the assumption around these things is, well, if we build this and it drives productivity gains, shallow ROI, then we can get this kind of business outcome. There's a lot of lossiness in that, right? As I said, if that employee leaves, you immediately lose that chunk of the value that you thought you were delivering. If there is some benefit, does it always go back to the bottom line? Usually not. And so where companies working with us have found their success, and we have customers who've been on our platform for 5-6 years plus, they're like, well, the reason why you keep being relevant to our business is because we're transforming these business workflows, which actually drop to the bottom line. right? When you transform how something gets done, how budgets are, finalized, how things are optimized, you are in that case reducing the cost of running the business. Now, when you flip it around and you say, hey, how do we make sellers more productive? Not by just giving them tools to produce output, but actually, better source the right prospects, better, close a deal, go through that journey. Well, then you might actually be changing their ability to generate revenue, going back to the, rep productivity metric. And that will drive top line revenue. So I think that all those examples, though, are typically fairly complex. And you talked about like the grittiness of this stuff. To really get these business processes wrangled and to have your ability to kind of move the ball forward, you have to have all that stuff integrated and figured out. Yeah. So I think that we weren't surprised, kind of this do-it-yourself, go to Home Depot and you can go build a house. Sounds wonderful. But the reality is you do need to buy. And you need to maybe combine both on some levels, but you need to have the right platforms, the right partners. And that's what I love about enterprise software is you're not just selling some software and, having a credit card being swiped online. You're actually going in and you're going to the customer, trying to find their business problems. You're helping them articulate that, and then you're helping them transform it with this new capability.
So the rate in which these companies are scaling and developing these technologies are just getting faster and faster. I feel like every time I wake up and go to, let's say, x.com and read a couple of things, I'm like, oh my God, the world is like new again. Like, how do you kind of think about which companies will survive and which don't? And how do you make sure that Moveworks is on the surviving side or growing side?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. We think about, our competitive position, our ability to serve customers, I think is number one, right? You will see a lot of things emerge, and I'll get to that in a second. But to serve customers, they're looking for consistency, they're looking for reliability, they're looking for outcomes. And if you can't deliver that over and over and over again, you can have a hotshot company that grows really fast, and then year two, the procurement team comes at you from these large enterprises and say, hey, didn't deliver the value, we're not renewing, or half the price, or all of this, right? You start to see a lot of regression or degradation in the business. Yeah. So you have to be able to deliver on that. But I think your first point is really important. So when I founded Moveworks, there was a common phrase from investors and advisors, right? Triple, double, double.
Yeah.
Man, if you can triple, double, double, you are genius. You are good. Life is going to be great. What that means is, of course, let's say start with $1 million, goes to 3 million, 3 million goes to 9, and then 9 goes to 18, 18 goes to 36. Okay, not anymore. That sounds cute. And that sounds like, almost a languishing company in today's world. Today, it seems like if you don't get to 100 million of ARR in less than 2 years, you kind of don't have something that the world is going to consume. Because as I said before, when I talked about our pending acquisition, the adoption and the sort of distribution really matters. So what I see a lot of, and I get folks reaching out saying, hey, we hit this, we did this, is a lot of this popcorn growth goes up and then it goes down.
Yep.
And I think we've seen it, right? We've seen, especially in developer tools and stuff, companies just go up massively.
Yeah.
And then you have this reverse acqui-hire. It's like, what happened? I thought this was like the best business in the history of SaaS or, AI, and then all of a sudden abandoned. And that's because obviously things get difficult, costs go out of control, the economics don't work. There's a lot of reasons why that happens. But it is a property, I think, of what we're seeing. So I think you will see today more and more companies go 0 to 100 in no time. And some will then go back to 0 or essentially not work out, and others will keep scaling.
Yeah.
But I think that's just the era we're in. I think we're in a new era where product market fit, if you will, going back to our other point, gets realized or identified super early, super fast. And if you don't reach it, I guess the good news is back when you and I started our companies, it would take many years, maybe half a decade or longer to know if you're onto something or not. Now these new founders are going to find out in 24 months if their idea is good or if they should just close shop and start again. So It's much more ruthless, much more efficient from a market creation destruction perspective, but you won't be sitting there for long, long periods of time saying, well, maybe it'll happen, maybe it'll happen. It's sort of like going to be more of a binary thing.
That's crazy to think about because I just was seeing a YC company that had $1 million of AR in June, hit 13 in September. We didn't see that during the, I guess, B2B SaaS era. Now with AI, we're seeing a ton of that. Another company out of an accelerator called HF0. I think there were like 3 companies in the like some of the recent batch that went from 0 to 2 million during the 3 months, whatever acceleration period. One company went from 0 to 10, from like starting a company to reaching 10 million AR during the acceleration period. I'm like, how does that even happen? So is that really a popcorn growth, or how does it sustain? And then on a, I guess a relative note, there are still AI-enabled companies that are building AI for lawyers and accountants. They go from 0 to 1 or 0 to 2 over up now painfully long, a year or 6 months period. But sometimes I feel like maybe that's better because like you're selling to people, they're adopting AI. So it's like as long as people are buying not true PLGs like enterprise sales, maybe it's more durable. But as an investor, you get obviously more excited by a company going from 1 to 13 in 3 months versus 1 to 2 in 6 months.
Yeah.
So how to kind of like reconcile?
Well, I think you have to think of, I mean, again, dynamics are different today. It may feel better to have it grow slower, and it may feel more durable. But the question is it more durable? Just because it took a long time for that customer to adopt, maybe less of an indication of what your product is and its durability. It just may be that they are not at the same place market-wise to really start spending. I mean, I'm seeing such a shift in our own customer base where there might have been hesitancy even, 5 years ago for sure. And then even after ChatGPT, well, I don't know, I'm this and that, to all of a sudden, we had one massive company, large aerospace company, buy our product in a record time of 25 days. We were meeting 3 times a day. Like, that would never have happened. And they said they've never procured software as fast as they did with us in the history of this company. And it's like, okay, clearly we have some fit there, but I wonder if it's really like, I would rather have more of those, by the way, than where I'm sort of slowly clipping. And again, going back to where I'm excited about our future is being able to get in front of more conversations that can move the needle faster. So I wouldn't necessarily say slow is better. It's not like the turtle in the hair example, but it is on the hair example. Is that going to be sustained? Is that 1 to 13 going to go and go and go? And I think that's where the efficiency of the market right now is so ruthless. Yeah, these founders are somewhat misled to think, hey, they figured it all out. It's just going to keep going. And then, of course, it's not. And so I think that, again, you'll have more companies emerge faster. They'll get destroyed faster. There'll be fewer winners. Yeah. Because I think you would argue in our era, we probably saw less destruction and more companies that got to really decent scale, that have built really good businesses, right? But then the question goes back to your other point, which is, what are investors looking for? And the challenge will come when you get to the next chasm of trying to go public. What do the public markets want? Yeah. And we're seeing it play out. Markets are ripping, so that's good. And grateful for some of the things we've seen with Figma and these other ones have come out. It's good news, but I think it's still going to be a while to figure out what kinds of businesses can continue into the public sector over time.
And we've seen probably enough cycles of Web 2.0, mobile, SaaS, now AI. Not like almost everything, nothing ever truly lasts. So when is the next, to your point, around chasm and market sentiments going to turn around? One day, all these AI companies, the dust will settle. And as Jack Ma once said, when the storm happens, even the pigs can fly. But when the storm stops, you know who the pigs were, right? Yeah. Moveworks has been, working in the government context from FedRAMP to AI action plans. How do you see the role of AI evolving in the public sector? And has the pace of AI adoption changed at all in the new administration?
Look, I think as much as we're trying to transform our businesses in the private sector, we know it works. We know it works at scale. We know it works in large enterprises, large departments. And so the question has always been, how can that sort of make its way into the public sector? A lot of conversation, obviously, this year around DOGE and sort of government efficiency with the new administration. And we started to see early signs of that when we were building our company years ago, when we had certain counties, city of Glendale, you have, Santa Monica now has become a customer. We have counties like Idaho County in Idaho and so forth adopting our product. So we know that the public sector, when we look at the data, is very similar. They have the same sort of employee issues. People need support. People need to find things. People need to be productive. So I think they're indistinguishable from the world that we want to see ourselves live in as knowledge workers, as factory workers, et cetera, with the advancements of this new technology. So we're finding that the public sector is very ripe for this. And I think, if you're a citizen of whatever country you're a citizen of, right, you hopefully have some interest in improving your country's capabilities of being competitive, your country's capabilities of delivering better citizen services. And so we've been, working towards this goal that we have. And we have a lot of large defense contractors who use our product, like Leidos and others that have been really helping us on the forefront of understanding what does it take to be government ready. So we went down this FedRAMP process, as you pointed out, kind of, 3.5 years of a journey, more than, sort of $10 million in spend, but to get ourselves hardened, to have the controls in place, to have the ability to handle sensitive data, which we do. We do it for banks, we do it for hospitals, we do it for all these things. The government's another level. And so that investment has been really exciting because we now are what they call FedRAMP ready status. And we've just secured our sponsor, who will be announced soon, that will give us the ability to get the final certification with lots of agencies that are already, in conversation with us to reap the benefits of Moveworks. So I think to your question about the administration and so forth. So I testified in front of Congress for about, I think, 4 hours, a couple months back about the sort of, procurement of AI and how to help the government sort of make that process simpler, how to help startups offer capabilities to the government, right? I went through such a long, arduous process. How do we speed that up? There are initiatives around that. And so I sort of shared a lot of our perspective in our journey. I think if you look at the AI action plan that was written by the Office in Science Technology Policy, Director Kratsios and the team there, phenomenal plan to sort of get us thinking about how to be more agile at bringing AI into the government. So I think what I'm seeing is a good set of signs that there is the right interest, there's the right use cases that we've obviously been bringing forth, and there is a better conversation today in terms of members of Congress who I meet with, members of the Senate, who understand this space a little bit more and are more open arms about bringing this in. So I'm really excited. I'm hopeful. I think that as a citizen of this country, I want to do as much as I can and then hopefully extend that into other governments, around the world.
Wow. Feels like the future might be a little bit more exciting, even in the public sector.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. With just like more and more just AI companies popping out everywhere, I think latest stats in YC was somewhere between 70 to 90% of all companies are like now AI first companies. And we've seen like vendors, it's like a land grab moment. Everybody's like not thinking about cost of sales, cost of customer acquisition, lots of steep discounts, free pilots, just throwing everywhere. Is the right path? Do you see this like ending anytime soon? Like, where do you think this is going?
I don't see it ending. I think that we also know that models and inference costs are going down, but of course everyone wants the latest. So you then end up, potentially spending more. Some of these tools, especially coding tools, can run really tons of inference if you're trying to do a lot of analysis. So it can get expensive. But I think that's the market that we're in. I think, as we saw during the internet bubble in those days, I mean, people were getting 50-pound bags of dog food delivered for free. And people were wondering, how is that happening? Who's paying for that? Yeah. And the consumers were the winners of that. Of course, those companies didn't figure out what Amazon ended up figuring out through lots of infrastructure and lots of investment to get there. But I think that you're going to see a very competitive market. I think the winners are going to be the customers, the users, and I think businesses are going to have to fight it out to see who can do this most cost effectively, who can do this in a way that does meet the market. I like it. I think, when you saw, products like DeepSeek come out,
Yeah.
a group of people, the right people in the right room, working on the right problem can solve what otherwise may have taken a lot more hardware. They solved it with software. They solved it with creativity. So I think there's lots of ways to innovate that will bring down the costs. And I think that's only going to make the quality of life improve. I mean, look, technology has historically raised the quality of life by bringing the cost down every year, right? This is the struggle with healthcare, right? Cost has not gone down every year, it's gone up. And so I think we're going to see more of this. And I think you'll have certain companies invest heavily, hyperscalers, the foundation model companies, to push the frontier forward.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll have these huge ecosystems in the wake of these inventions that will bring quality of business, quality of life, quality of capabilities to the rest of the world.
Which is super interesting because I think the fastest declining traffic for all internet searches right now is really to healthcare. They're all going to AI.
Interesting.
So because you get a lot more personalized advice, and things like GPT is getting more and more accurate and knowledgeable. So it's not like the hallucination rate is obviously going down. So people are just getting far more medical advice from AI rather than human doctors. Also, there was another study where they kind of did A/B testing between an AI doctor and a human doctor. Patients prefer 70% of time to talk to AI doctors. They found AI doctors to be more empathetic, more descriptive, and speaking the language that they would understand, and also was a bit more personalized. Instead of judging too quickly, they try to really understand your personal, all the symptoms, nitty-gritty detail, which was helpful. So I do think the healthcare is super interesting. Obviously, we still need expertise of real life experience from doctors, but there might be an AI agent layer that really triages a lot of this conversation up front for patients, which I think is a win-win to bring the cost down, as well as getting more decent patient healthcare. And I heard there's a company called SendBird that might be helping out in the AI agent sector with healthcare. So, all right.
Love it.
As I said, we like to end each of our episodes on a more personal note to uncover our guests what we call the human prompt. If you had to access an ultimate, all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent AI, no hallucinations whatsoever, what is that one kind of prompt that you like to ask or put into this great AI?
It's a good question. Show and tell me what I need to do to ensure and guarantee I get a good night's sleep every night. I've found that, and maybe just as I get older, if I get a good night's sleep, I can do anything the next day. If I don't, it's a struggle. It's very clear as whether I got a good night's sleep. And when I see how I feel, I'm more positive, I'm more friendly, I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better manager, I'm a better listener. And I really believe, having seen the dramatic changes between a good night and a bad night's sleep, that if that affects me so much, what if everyone in the world got a good night's sleep? I think we'd have fewer wars. We would have fewer, sort of problems. You would have less hatred. You would have a lot of things that people would then want to work through because they have the patience and they have the attention and they have the cognition to listen. And so I'm really big on sleep in the sense that I think it unlocks this next level of human performance. And I know there's been conversations over the last few years, it's gotten a bigger topic, and you have products and services helping you sleep better at night, and mattresses and covers and things like that. But I think that if you can have an AI that is omnipotent, omnipresent, that can sort of tell you, that would be a huge deal. And I watch like when I don't get a good night's sleep or perfect night's sleep, it's like, oh, that's because we had a board call at 9 p.m. and I was too wound up before I went to bed, to sort of get the full rest that I needed. And, I think there's so much data now and insights that if we can get there, which I think we're not too far, but I think it requires, remember the arms and legs analogy, like you can have the brain, but now it needs to feed in all the data. It needs to know what I'm doing right now to help better inform me what I should do tonight to ensure a good night's sleep.
Wow. Not what I expected. This is fantastic. What are the maybe 3 tips that you want to give to the audience how to perfect your sleep that you do or you wish you would be doing?
Well, I think, there's a lot of obviously great podcasters out there who speak to this topic, but definitely, I follow the regime of, get your cortisol levels up early in the morning. Don't drink caffeine for the, first, hour or two. Don't drink it in the afternoon. And do try and, shut down early so that you can, when you go to sleep, you're not wound up. I also try and eat dinner, I want to be done with all food by 7 p.m. Because I go to bed around 9:30 to 10. And so I need all that fully digested. And I think the weekends become harder.
Yep.
But if you do a couple of those things, you stay fit, or you work out, whatever's, the right thing for you. I think those things add a lot. And then, of course, there's the whole supplement world, which we don't need to get into. But I think there's some things there that will help as well.
Sounds like Andrew Huberman a little bit there.
Yeah, Peter Attia, all these folks kind of have come to democratizing access to
Brian Johnson,
this information, right? And it's actually pretty accurate. I think what it's done for at least myself and a lot of my friend circle is all these vices that we had. In fact, growing up was almost a right to have vices. I don't know if it was that the case with you, but like it was like, okay, when I get this age, I'm going to start drinking. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start doing that. Yeah. And that's what it meant to be an adult in my sort of psyche. And then you sort of live that life, and then you sort of start to realize these things, and you're like, actually, no, those aren't the things that you need to have to be truly content and to see the greatest sort of moments and pleasures in life. And so I think what those folks have done is really helped us all see how great things can be when you don't inflict your body with, toxins and things and behaviors that degrade your performance.
So no shots. All right. Well, Bhavin, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being here. And I really look forward to the next chapter for Moveworks too. Any last words? How can people learn more about you or about Moveworks?
I think Moveworks is it's a team of amazing people, and I think you'll be hearing about us, seeing us as we evolve the business. I think we want to continue this journey of being the front door, and you can learn about us on our website. You can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm posting quite often, so I'm always happy to help folks that are thinking about how they can contribute to this world, especially in technology. And if any of my advice, though it's just advice, can be of help, I always want to be able to be accessible to folks. So thank you for having me on, and thanks for allowing me to share the story.
Thanks so much.